Welcome back everyone, Mike McConville here again for StringTech. So I'm putting this double Yamaha video together for Dave, one of my Tier 3 Patreon guys who's a bit of a aficionado on Yamaha guitars dating back to the 60s. So I have not touched either of these guitars, and I'm going to kind of do them in tandem. The whole compensated nut and saddle. I did one just a couple of weeks ago for another customer, but I thought while I had the two of these here, I would take the opportunity to go through this whole calibration process A to Z on both of these guitars. So we'll start with this one here. So I have not touched anything, I have not adjusted anything, straight out of the case onto the TechDeck. I do have my piece of foam underneath the strings tight to the bridge to kill any sympathetic resonance while we check the intonation on this. We'll do what we always do, starting with the open string. 7th fret. Its octave. The 12th fret. The open string again. Open string again, and 1st fret. Okay, here's the 5th string. Love this sound system, by the way. 7th fret, and its octave. 12th fret, open, and 1st fret. So our 4th string, 7th fret, its octave, 12th fret, open, and 1st fret. That's very good. 3rd string, its 7th fret, its octave, oh, it's like 15 sharp. 12th fret, open, and its 1st fret. There's 2nd string, 7th fret, its octave, 12th fret, open, and 1st fret. 1st string, 7th fret, its octave, whoa, 12th fret, open, and 1st fret. We'll be back after the whole thing is regulated, intonated, calibrated. We'll do this exact same test again. I'm bringing you in to show you this because it's another example of Yamaha just making too much sense. Here we go, 2 AA batteries. I don't know about you guys, but for me, the 9-volt has been the bane of my existence. This just makes perfect sense, and look at how quick the change is. Spring mounted, there you go. Thank you, Yamaha. So this is the FXS5 model. So again, I have not touched a thing. Out of the box, onto the TechDeck. So 6th string open, 7th fret, its octave. Whoa, it's like 17 sharp. 12th fret, open, and 1st fret. I do have my foam mute in there. No sympathetic resonance from the other strings. There's our 5th string, 7th fret. Wow, right on the money. Octave, 12th fret, open, and 1st fret. It's not too bad, that 5th string. Out of the 2 guitars, that's the only string so far that's been even close. There's our 4th string, 7th fret, octave, 12th fret, open, and 1st fret. There's our 3rd string, 7th fret, octave, 12th fret, open, first fret. So our second string, 7th fret, it's octave, 12th fret, open, and first fret. First string, 7th fret, it's octave, 12th fret, open, and first fret. Now I know it's not real exciting to look and listen to a guitar that's out of tune, but I need to make the point. When I come back and do this test, you'll see, and more importantly, hear for yourself just how accurate that both of these Yamaha guitars can be. Thanks for persevering. These are the steps that I went through. This was the first reading. We're talking about the fretted 7th fret note and its corresponding octave 19th fret. And these were the values all the way across. This is original saddle before I touched anything. That was the first reading. This was the second reading. This was the third reading. You can see I'm getting in a little closer. I've got 3 out of 6 strings are actually in tune now. This is the fourth reading. We were just left with the D and B strings being sharp. And this is our 5th and final reading. So now the guitar is calibrated from the 7th fret to the 19th fret. After the saddle was done, we went to the 12th fret fretted note and the open string, and these were the values of the original nut all the way across. So I taped that strip of brass across the leading edge of the nut and then intonated all 6 strings. So now the fretted 12th fret note and the open string were in tune. Lastly, I filed out the second string to reduce the height so that the open string and first fret notes were in tune. I adjusted the truss rod, backed it off, because when I took the string tension off, it went into a little bit of a back bow. So I loosened that truss rod off till I got the neck dead straight and very lightly breezed over the top end at the neck to body junction, and then lightly leveled, recrowned, and polished. After very lightly leveling that neck to body junction, I switched over to 400 grit, stepped it up to 600, 800, and then final buff to get these frets where they are now. So we're finally ready to put the brand new set of strings on, and we'll try that tuning test again. You can see how far back I had to come on that original saddle to get this to line up. I did open up those slots a little bit to increase the tension at the focal point on the saddle all the way across. So the other thing you have to be very careful about when you have this type of a system in the guitar is to mask off the sound hole when you're doing all your fret work. Because as you can see, all of the electronics inside are wide open. You do not want to get any fret filings in there. And that's why that sound hole needs to be masked off 100%. Here we go. A string, D, the third string. Second string. And the first string. Now we'll play some chords. Welcome back, everyone. Mike McConville here one more time for StringTech. There are several things I want to cover as I go over this second Yamaha guitar. Now this one is actually, this is rosewood back inside. It's a little higher end model that Mark has. We are going to do a partial refret. This has a two-way truss rod, and I am going to try and explain this as best I can. So first of all, you'll see no dial calipers up the back of the neck, no vices, no clamps, and no CNC machines. Everything is done here on the GPS Tech Deck. As we look closely at these first 4-5 frets, this is the only real wear that we have. Now normally if it was a bigger fret, I would just dress that down and go full length. But because these frets are small to begin with, so I've opted to go with replacing the first 4 frets, and then I'll dress those new frets down to the height of the original frets. And this gets us back to factory spec. So first thing is to remove these 4. So I do like to apply a little bit of heat to loosen up any potential adhesive, super glue or otherwise. So I'm checking this with the Incra depth gauge, and yeah, we got lots of depth in there. That's not a problem. And here I'm checking the actual height of the tang. Yeah, so no issue there. We'll take those other 3 frets out. To cut these slightly oversized. I'll explain as I go. A little better camera angle for you. So those 4 are going to do it for us. And they are in order, of course. So I'm going to square off those ends first. And this I do with the foot switch and the 12-inch vertical disc. Both sides. While I'm set up, I'll just do them all. So I've taken my Sharpie and I've marked the portion of the tang of the fret that's going to be removed. So next I'm going to just nip off that tang, both sides, and check it against the slot. Good. that gives us the clearance we need. Although those tang cutters do take off 95% of the tang, there's still a little bit of extrusion left on the underside, which I like to file flush. Now I do this with an auger file, a file used for sharpening auger bits. Never sharpened an auger bit in my life, but it works great for this job. I'm getting a read on the thickness of the tang and the bead, original fret. That's the fret that came out. This is the fret that's going in, and this is 35 thou. So we're going from 34 thou, original fret. And just because I'm a fussy kind of guy, I have some blunted end nippers here. I'm going to squeeze that bead to bring it down by 1/1000th of an inch by squeezing the bead on the side of the tang, and we'll measure it again. And that gives us 34 thou. Okay, now this wire does have a bit of a curvature on it because it comes in a loop. Just softening the edge of the kerf, the top of the saw kerf. Good. So got my little triangular file and just kind of coaxing the top of the saw kerf open just a little tiny bit to receive the new fret. Now this is an ebony fingerboard, so it's quite a bit more brittle than rosewood. So I am getting out my mini Sharpie again, and so I've just marked the overall length now. So in order to ensure that the outside overhang rests firmly on the fingerboard when you send that fret home, when I go to clip it off, I actually flex it down ever so slightly. Then I clip it. Both sides, same thing. Grab it, flex it down slightly, and clip it. Checking that for length. Yeah, looking good. It's a little bit longer than we need. So that's the tolerance we're talking. Now I will go back to the disc sander. I'll be right back, and we'll check that again. Let's have another look. I will go through all of these steps on each fret. Now that's the tolerance I'm after. Now I'll go to the buffer and buff those ends. I've already beveled them, and then we'll be ready to send that fret home. kind of find that angle on the original frets and transfer it to the 4 new frets. Because there's so little protrusion on these new frets, you're not jarring them loose. Like, people go to all the trouble to do a fret job and then they have this much fret hanging out and clip it off, and it ends up loosening the fret on that outside edge. You can hear by the sound of the file that there's no resistance there. Beautiful. And that's all it took. That's dead flush. So this is the auger file that you saw me using, although I was using this end. On this end there are teeth on the face and no teeth on the edge. On this side there are no teeth on the face and only teeth on the edge. And that's where we get that sharp little tip at the bottom of the crown. So those brand new strings, I've got them tucked out of the way, just the tongue depressor under there. I also have that tongue depressor on the face to protect the surface of the face. No chance of the strings marring anything. And we're ready to switch over to 600 grit. Okay, I've got a small piece of 600 grit here. Just gonna liking that. I am just getting ready to level those 4 new frets down to the height of the original frets, so they're a little bit higher. But before I do, I want to explain something about this two-way truss rod. So with the two-way truss rod, on this guitar it's adjusted at this end, on the other Yamaha it was adjusted at this end, but the function remains the same. So when I put the Allen key in there and tighten it, it pulls the neck back the opposite force of the strings. The strings want to pull the neck up like a banana, and the truss rod, when you tighten it clockwise, looking from this direction, it pulls the neck back down, counteracts the pull of the strings. But the difference with a two-way truss rod, and it's a big difference, is if you go counterclockwise and loosen it off until there's no tension at all, you reach what I refer to as a neutral zone. And if you keep turning counterclockwise, you'll feel it grab, and that's what we ended up doing with this one. You'll feel it grab, and it will actually pull the neck up the same type of force as the strings. So the reason I adjusted it like that is because we're getting ready to level those 4 new frets, and there are several high spots that we need to get. When I loosened the strings off, this neck went in a back bow, which is not that unusual. So I backed it off to the neutral zone, and it was still going in a little bit of a back bow. So I went through the neutral zone, started to exert that negative pressure to bring this neck up dead straight. That's what we've done. That's where it is right now. No steel poles up the back of the neck. There's no CNC machines, no vices, no clamps. Everything is done here on the GPS. So all you guys that have your GPS units will easily be able to mimic what I'm doing here. So we've got this neck as straight as it could possibly be. I'm starting with the 4 new frets and I'm bringing those down until I just graze the 5th fret. Across the first 4 until I see slight tooling marks from the file on that 5th fret. I'll keep going. I've said this a couple of hundred times, but I need to say it again. When you're filing with the file, you need to move obliquely over the crown. The reason for that is the fretboard has a curvature. The file does not have a curvature, it's dead flat. So the only way to guarantee following that fret crown radius is to move obliquely. Now when I say obliquely, I'm moving the file like this, but I'm not twisting the file. You need to keep it in line with the string path when you're doing this. And then I'm cross-hatching. I go this way, and then I go this way. I'm going to stop in a second and check this again with the straight edges. While I'm at it, I'm going to hit all these high spots now up here. Let's have a look. That's straightened. Got that one. Got this one. Got that one. There's still a little bit of tick in there. That's got it. Okay, our new frets. We're ready for recrowning. These are the Hosco files. You can get them online from several different suppliers. I've had these files for 40 years, still using them. Now in order to get rid of the tooling marks of the file, I start with 400 grit sandpaper. This is with the scrub block that I send out in the fretting kits. And that kind of slurs over top of those crowns and, like I said, scrubs out any trace of the tooling marks of the file. Oh, that just about did it there. We didn't really dig too deep with this. Very light fret dress. Okay, so we've stepped it up to 600 grit, and that will get rid of the 400 grit marks. Give it a second piece of 600. Good measure. This is our 800 grit. Get a concentrating on these new frets at the top end. I had a new customer in today that dropped off his ES345 for the full treatment, and he was asking about this, about oil. Do you put oil on the fingerboard? And this is an ebony fingerboard, and I explained to him that his guitar is also ebony. I explained to him that it's fine to use some lemon oil, preferably with no silicone in it. But as you can see here, I wipe it on and I wipe it off dry. So you don't want to soak the fingerboard. You just want to, like I said, wipe it on quickly. I'm cleaning off the residue of the canvas strop as well, that jeweler's rouge. But that's it. Kind of wipe it on, wipe it off, and you're good. You know, you could probably stand to do this on your own guitar or your customers' guitars once or maybe twice a year. You don't have to do it every time you change strings or anything. You can see I'm kind of doing it in thirds. So I did the bottom third, middle third, now I'm up at the top third of the fingerboard. And again, you wipe it on and wipe it off dry. We are essentially done this guitar. Now that this guitar is complete, I'll walk you through the steps of the compensated nut. So this is the very first reading with the original nut. Fretting the 12th fret note on each string and then playing the open string. And in this case, the low E was perfect. And the rest of them, as you can see, were flat. And this is the second reading. Now this is the compensated nut blank with a 12-inch radius cut across the leading edge. This was the very first reading. So you can see it is the opposite of the original nut. It's sharp all the way across. So after working that 12-inch radius a little bit, this is our second reading. So I went over it a couple more times, third, and this is the fourth reading. So you can see now we've got it down to middle two strings, D and G, are just a couple of cents sharp. The four outside strings are right on the money. And of course this is our fifth and final reading. We got it lined up all the way across. And you'll hear it in a second when we plug it in and sit down in the studio. You'll hear just how regulated this guitar is. So this is the initial reading on the original bridge saddle. So fretted 7th fret and fretted 19th fret notes. After the first adjustment, we ended up with this. After the second adjustment, we ended up with this. So we got 4 of the 6 strings in tune. And then after the final adjustment, all 6 strings lined up. For all of you that are following my channel, or have been over the last few years and the last 780 videos, you pretty well know by now that I'm big on the vernacular, on using stuff that's readily available and super cost effective. And this is just one more of those jobs. This is a dollar store item, so I'm getting ready to flush, sand, and polish this compensated nut. You saw me refer to these in that last neck surgery video, and these are emery boards that I pick up for $1.25 at the local dollar store. So I'm just kind of working my way through the different grits. Obviously have the fingerboard and face of the headstock masked off while I do this. On the treble side, the nut is dead flush with the surface of the finish. On the bass side, it's still a little bit proud, so we're going to kind of work that down. Of course, the masking tape is protecting the finish as we do this. This is a new thing for me. I've just started doing this, just the last 3 or 4 jobs, but I wanted to share this with you because it makes such a beautiful job. This is starting with the coarsest, number 1. It's the other thing, they're all numbered. You go to number 2, second most coarse. This is number 3. Number 4. And number 5. Six. And 7. You saw me use this when I had finished the neck surgery on that last Les Paul. Look at that beautiful polished finish that this gives us. Less than the price of one piece of sandpaper. You get 7 grades. Like I said in that neck surgery video, because it's actually foam, it flexes. And it's another job where it kind of flexes where it needs to flex. And that's what we end up with. Now I'll finish this off with the last few grits. That's number 4, number 5, number 6, and the last one, number 7. And that's it, dead flush. Just going to load those string slots up with some carnauba wax before we string this up. And we are ready now to tune this up for the final time, bring it into the studio, and we can all check it out. So this is the progression in C minor. So I'm going to let that play and then just blow over top. Now, I've used this progression before where I've got a minor ninth on top. And when I play those two notes together, well, it's a half step apart, so kind of sounds out of tune, but played within the context of an arpeggiated chord, there's another ninth on top. It's kind of a nice way, again, to check the intonation across the span of the neck. This is the quick wrap-up on the AC5R Yamaha of Marks. There's our compensated saddle. These are the 4 new replacement frets, and that is the compensated nut. So these are 11 to 52 at concert pitch. And this one's rosewood, back and sides. These are the stock Yamaha tuners. Very simple design, very well machined. Super stable.